Hey folks, welcome back. Chris in Central Pennsylvania. One thing that the African National Congress has long prided itself on is its discipline. In other words, its ability to control all of its organs and its sub-elements, directions from the Thule House. People take their marching orders from there. Now, we saw that in the concept of deploying our cadres, sending your cadres, your cadres all over the country, people who are loyal to the Thule House, not necessarily to the constituencies where they were sent to represent. So for instance, the Thule House, the ANC headquarters would send people to the Western Cape and put in positions of power when they ran that government, but they had no loyalty or no obligation to the constituents because those constituents don't vote for them, they vote for the ANC, and the ANC decides who represents them. So they've always prided themselves on the discipline they have over their party. One thing has become abundantly clear since 2023, and it's played out very much so in this whole dispute, argument, complaint, joy, sadness, whatever you want to say, over the renaming of Santon Drive, which was done in 2018. That's when they approved it, but they'd yet to actually put it into effect or implement it. So now the whole issue is really playing out large. Joel Pollak has talked about it and warned South Africa that doing so would cause the Americans to shut down their consulate in Johannesburg. It's a very real possibility. But members of the Johannesburg Council, the Pan-African Congress, the EFF, the ANC, gotten up and been very obstinate about it. This is just one issue. We've seen here over the past year and a half, Panyaza Lesufi is looking to become the big man in the next round when Cyril leaves the stage after this term in office. There are other competitors. Paul Mashatile, of course, he's dogged by lots of alleged corruption, not proven yet, but alleged corruption. People wonder why he lives in a 25 million rand house in the Western Cape and another expensive house in Gauteng. So maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. We don't know the provenance of his good fortune to own or to occupy houses that belong to someone else. It's very good fortune for him. But Mashatile is a candidate. Of course, Fikile Mabulula has got his hat in the ring too. But Panyaza Lesufi's been making a big move to be the man, looking lots of attention and behaving very much out of the norm for the ANC. And he has taken the structures of the African National Congress in the Gauteng province, the most populous, the wealthiest, the most important province in all of South Africa, very much in his own direction, contrary to the national security interest of the government, of the country of South Africa, and even of the African National Congress. And this ill discipline, which is what the ANC would call it, not me, I'd call it independence, but the ANC would call it ill discipline, is harming the ANC grievously. And it's playing out in this Leila Khaled situation. So we've seen finally that President Ramaphosa has stepped forward, although you could see the pain in the moments when presidency spokesman Vincent Mangwenya had to say it. It's almost like he choked on the words that the office of president is going to step in using the foreign ministry, in essence DIRCO, to talk to the structures in Gauteng to get them to calm down and abandon this idea of renaming Santon Drive to Leila Khaled. Of course, the most famous occupant on that street at the moment is the United States consulate at 1 Santon Drive. And the arrogance and the disrespect and rudeness of members of those political parties I mentioned previously in the Johannesburg Council in saying, we will change it, we will make them have it on the letterhead, we'll put it in their face. Wow, that's not diplomatic. Of course, this is a municipality, and municipalities don't worry too often about diplomacy unless they have a sister city agreement with the city in another country. So the arrogance of members of the ANC and their structures at the local level in South Africa is having a detrimental impact on South Africa's foreign relations with the United States. Every step forward that the government attempts to make to stop the bleeding, someone else in their party or some politician or some academic just makes it worse, telling fairy tales, lying about the United States, lying about Trump. It's really, truly a tragedy of epic proportions. This is an own goal that will forever go down in the annals of stupidity for South Africa. The United States is the biggest benefactor for South Africa. The trade that you have with the United States is incredibly beneficial to South Africa. No, we're not the largest trading partner, although we were for decades. We're the second largest trading partner. But unlike China, we don't send our finished goods and make tons of money off you in the value chain and buy your raw materials and pay virtually nothing for them at market prices. We buy raw materials, but we also buy finished automobiles and lots of other products that are up the value chain, which employ far more people in South Africa as you have a diversified industry or product export. Also, your duty-free access to the U.S. market, which at this point, I'm sad to say, is illegitimate, illegal, because the Expropriation Without Compensation Act violates the key tenet of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, and that is respect for private property rights. When you take private property without compensation, whether you do it or not, if it's in the law, clearly you don't respect private property rights. Therefore, you have made yourself ineligible for continued participation in AGOA. The shocking thing here is that while they attack Trump as a racist, and idiots in South Africa call him the Grand Wizard, or the EFF Grand Wizard, the Ku Klux Klan, they can't even spell it properly. And also former Ambassador Rasul said he's the leader of a global white supremacy movement. While these idiots say things like that to inflame the situation, Trump has actually taken no concrete steps against the Republic of South Africa. Zero. The only thing he's done is suspend aid. Well, he's made it permanent now, at least for the moment, because of the intransience and the insults and the attacks by the South African government. But he stopped aid globally, not just for South Africa, it's for everybody. So South African politicians chose to do what they always do. Hey, over here, us, me. Meanwhile, there was no aid going to Bangladesh, no aid going to Uganda, no aid going to Botswana, no aid going to East Swatini. It was all suspended. So why do South African politicians decide to pick a fight? One can only surmise that this is intentional. And I don't know what the antipathy towards the United States is. The United States played a significant role in helping end apartheid. We destroyed the Soviet Union. We buried them economically. They couldn't keep up. And therefore, the Cold War ended and Soviet communism collapsed across the world, which made the opening for the end of apartheid in South Africa. Not to mention, Congress overrode President Reagan's veto of the comprehensive sanctions bill, which also had an impact, as every American company had to divest from South Africa and leave there. And that had a crushing impact on South Africa. It wasn't the deciding factor, but it had impact. And generations of liberation leaders got their education in the UK. They also went to Moscow and Beijing and East Berlin, we get it. But generations of them went to Yale and Harvard and Berkeley and places like that. We provide education, oftentimes free of charge. And this is our reward for our support for South Africa, helping it when it was suffering under communism, under the National Party. Yeah, the U.S. did help the National Party, that's a true statement, but also helping bring about the liberation. And for 30 years, having been a friend, established a binational commission, worked with the South Africans, give them plenty of room to be their own country, to become themselves, supported them, tens of thousands of South Africans coming back and forth, allowing over 100,000 South Africans to come to the United States and work on our farms with visas that we don't grant to many countries, and giving $8.1 billion to fund HIV over the past 22 years. And our reward is this level of juvenile behavior from the EFF, from the Pan-African Congress, from even one member of the Inkatha Freedom Party, which shocked the bejesus out of me. And of course, not surprising at all, from the structures of the ANC inside Gauteng and even the national level. I mean, Cyril Ramaphosa didn't help this situation when he started his State of the Nation address with, "We will not be bullied." Bullied by whom, hero? Nobody bullied South Africa, but you keep pushing the buttons. How long do you think before the bear actually strikes? Now, for the hate wankers who steal my content and say, oh, he's threatening South Africa, pay attention, clean the wax out of your ears, listen to the words come out of my mouth. These aren't threats. This is an analysis to warn you that your actions have consequences. You've been getting a free ride for a long time while passing macroeconomic policies that destroy South Africa. 3 times as many black South Africans live in abject poverty as under the worst conditions in the National Party. Education standards are far below what they were during the National Party. That's egregious. That is absolutely egregious. For black South Africans, colored South Africans, and even some Indian South Africans, the education standards were poor. They didn't have access to good education. Well, you don't have it today. And not only do they not have it, but many whites are denied access to education today because unqualified people are put in those spots because you have a quota system. The ANC has utterly destroyed education in South Africa, and one has to wonder if it isn't intentional. 30%, 30%, 30%, and 40% in your first language, and you pass the matric, and you qualify for university. And don't quibble with me about, well, that doesn't mean they get in. It means they qualify. So if you qualify, you get in somewhere, get into lower level university. This is insanity of the highest order. And these are own goals. 31 years after the end of apartheid, South Africans are hungrier, poorer, and more miserable than they were during apartheid. And that's not an apology for apartheid. It was an abysmal system. It was racist, it was unfair, it was unjust to so many people. But this system isn't any better. And it has nothing to do with capitalism. It has nothing to do with free markets. It has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has to do with the macroeconomic policies, the political policies of the ruling party, and now the government of national unity, which intentionally eliminate segments of people from the economy, which is detrimental to all South Africans. Everyone suffers when one South African suffers. So, Ubuntu, Human Rights Day, well, maybe it's time to reflect on that. And maybe it's time, much to my chagrin, that the ANC get control of the ill discipline in its party in the Gauteng province. What say you, South Africa? Those are my thoughts today, Saturday, 22 March, I think it is. Cheers. Be safe out there. It's going to get bumpy from here on out.